Hello, everyone. I'm Renata, this parenting show host, and today, from a very far away, sunny California, with me is Kathy Mendias. Um, Katie is a certified childbirth educator and doula with a passion to support expecting couples and families to promote emotional health through embracing life's tears. That last part of a sentence is hard, right? Hello, Katie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And as I was reading, your bio, I was like, oh, through embracing life's tears. No, nobody likes that. Nobody wants to do that. Why crying? We usually imagine like, being happy is about, absence of tears. And you say we must embrace life tears. Like, what?
I I think of it as those memories, those commercials that we see on television where you see this little child so excited and happy to see a puppy maybe for the first time. And you know how children will get all excited and then they start to cry and shake? Those are life's tears. And that's what I embrace, are those moments that get you to have so much emotion inside of you that it has to come out. And there's no better moments than motherhood. We're crying at the birth of our babies. So that right there is an example really of how those tears bubble up, have to go somewhere, and it's all a sign of extra emotion that's in our bodies. And that's what we're embracing life's tears about, are those moments. That's how I feel anyway.
What's your own relationship with tears? How did you always embrace them? How did it all started for you?
I I was never really taught about tears growing up, so I don't feel that I had a preconceived perception of what they should be.
Mm,
I knew that crying was usually bad, sad. I did something wrong, I would cry. I wasn't necessarily made to be shamed when I was crying. So I think that that's a benefit for me. I found that I had a harder time if I was crying and someone else was around me because they didn't want me to cry. And it would make me feel uncomfortable. So I think that for me, my relationship was more of, if I'm around somebody else, then I'm either making somebody else feel bad,
mm,
or I'm embarrassed just because I'm crying. Um, if I'm crying for happiness, I still feel embarrassed, which you shouldn't feel. But
mm,
that was pretty much how I was early on before I started teaching. And as I've mentioned probably to a lot of people, whether they've heard that story or not, but I was in class and I was teaching childbirth, and I teach childbirth to new couples who are having their first baby. And so this is all new to them. And this gentleman stands up and he demanded to know how many of the other men in the room had cried. And I didn't think anybody was going to admit it, and they did. And I was shocked at that point that they were admitting it, they were supporting each other, they were sharing their stories. And these were men that were so, I don't want to say burly or manly, that I wouldn't even think that they would admit it or even ask the question. And at that point, I realized I had to address tears in every single class, and I needed to talk about it, and I needed to make them okay. And that's really where my relationship started and continued to grow, was not necessarily for my needs, but for the needs of the people that I was helping and for all these couples, because the baby's going to cry. And so that really is where tears start, because babies are crying. And what do we try to do? We console them, right? Oh, stop crying, stop crying, stop crying. The neighbors are going to hear, or, somebody's going to think I'm a bad mom because my baby's crying. The baby's communicating. The baby has a lot of feelings or a lot of something that has got to come out. And since they can't speak, they're going to get frustrated, right? And then they're going to cry. So we first have to start with that. And that's where my relationship, to answer your question, came from with the teaching, is to really address, why are your babies crying? Why are you crying?
mm,
And is it okay for the people around you to cry? Whether it's the support people, whether it's the dad, whether it's the grandma. And then to kind of progress through life, as I went through my teaching career, I started to educate people about me, who I am. If they were my close friends, my husband, I had to teach him, hey, crying is okay. I will do this. It's almost like, a warning sign on a package. I will cry, watch out, because that's what I do. If I feel a lot of emotion, I'm going to have water coming from my eyes and it's going to be okay. And so
Mm,
it really is acclimating people around me to know this is a good thing. It's just a
mm,
lot of emotion I'm processing. And sometimes that's all I need to say. And so, how do you then transcend that to other people? And that's where my teaching took me.
I I think also there's something sacred about tears. I remember those rare occasions where I saw my husband cry. So one of them
Oh,
was
yeah.
when I took him to the scan. I was expecting our first child, and we went together to the scan, and he saw the baby, and then he started to cry, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, he cries!" Like that was the first time I saw him crying. So, but then going to those tears, I thought, so what's in there? Like, what did those tears touch in him so he would cry? Because he wasn't sad, obviously. I mean, he wasn't hurting, he wasn't sad, but so those tears was like an expression of something very dear
Yeah.
to him, like something really from the heart, from the soul, something deep inside that touched him, seeing his or his future son
Hmm.
in that scan, in that picture. And then something
Right.
got very soft inside, and then he started crying.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
that's that's an example of exactly where you have so much emotion.
mm,
It has to come out,
mm,
right? It is. It's so much more that your body can contain.
mm,
We can be happy, we can be sad, we can be angry, and you can feel different levels, right? You can feel anger boiling up, you can feel happiness. And when you have that moment and it touches their heart like that, and you see your baby born, or you see your baby on the on the scans, and it just bubbles up and it has to come out. Whether it was an event that they've never had before. um, I like to look at tears as really an expression of our most intense interior human experiences.
mm,
And so, in that case, that's the expression.
mm,
And when you think of the connection you probably felt with your husband, that was
mm,
probably amazing at that time, right?
mm.
The connection between the two, you
Yep,
and
yep.
that's what tears and crying can provide a connection and make us stronger, because at that point you're taking down the barriers and you're not embarrassed, you're not ashamed, you're just experiencing that moment. And so, for him to be his true self, you to be your true self, it gives me chills just thinking about it, because that's the moment.
Mm.
Those are the tears that we're enjoying throughout our lifetime.
That's true just in general. I think that the moments that I experienced the most profound connection to anybody was in those tearful moments, not in those, laughing out hard or having a good time moments. That's good too. You feel
Yeah.
connected to people, but it's a little bit different. And when you have those tears, you feel like you can really touch that person's heart, and it's very intimate. It suddenly
Mhm.
gets very intimate, like the whole atmosphere goes very still, and you
Yeah.
know that you're in presence of something sacred, something intimate, and it's like you're almost afraid of breathing out too loudly because the moment
Oh.
would go away, like just you go still as well, and then you just witness that moment.
Hmm. Now, let me ask you a question. Are you comfortable with someone crying in front of you that is in a lot of pain? Because
Yes.
that triggers people a lot of times to not be comfortable with people that are crying and actually can decrease a connection. So it depends on how the other person is receiving those tears.
I know I am kind of atypical. I kind of have a how do you call it? I don't know, a passion.
Mhm.
No, I'm joking, but yeah, I know it's really hard, and I hear that a lot around me. That parents, moms, dads saying that when my child cries, I just can't stand it. I just could give my hand, so he just would stop crying because it's too painful. I cannot bear it. I cannot be with it. It's just too painful.
Mhm. And I think that is what we need, the hurdle we need to jump over,
Mm,
because when somebody's uncomfortable with someone crying, they run away. They need to fix it. And
mm,
this is another part of really that bringing the two together, where it's an understanding of what's happening, because when someone cries, you have that idea that there's a problem and we need to fix it. And so this other person, and if we do look at a pregnant couple, because this is where it happens the most, right? The mom's on the couch and she's crying. The dad walks in and says, "Why are you crying?" And she's like, "Nothing, just leave me alone, just go." Okay, well, he hears leave, and so he leaves, right? But
mm,
he's leaving because he's been told to do that, and he thinks that's the way to fix the problem,
mm,
right? Because, oh, okay, she doesn't want me in the room, I have to leave. Well, we know what we do when he leaves, right? We cry harder.
mm,
And we're like, "He didn't stay, he didn't hold my hand." And then we are crying more when we really wanted them to stay. And
mm,
so that didn't work. So
mm,
instead, if we, as the person crying, can remember to help the people around us,
mm,
like I said, I'll tell people, "Hey, I'm a crier," or "I will do this," because I want them to feel comfortable. So if the partner can feel comfortable with those tears, instead of leaving,
mm,
the lady says, "I don't know why I'm crying. Can you just sit and hold my hand?" Well, he's hearing, "Hey, I'm going to sit down, hold her hand, and that's going to fix it." And then when the tears don't stop, she may just say, "Just stay with me. I'm okay. Just let me cry." So if we can verbalize what we need,
mm,
we can give the tools to the other person who's with us to help us, then those tears, which trigger our parasympathetic nervous system to help put us back in balance, we're going to calm down, everything's going to be better, and that connection will still be there because the person who fixed it will feel accomplished and feel like they have made a difference and everything's calm and everybody's happy again. But it really takes a little extra communication
mm,
on both sides to say, "Okay, I hear you telling me to leave. I don't really think that's what I should do. You want me to sit with you?" And if you get sent away again, the person who's crying can't blame this person for leaving, because if we've
mm,
told them to leave, they're
mm,
going to leave. We need to be able to say, "Can you just sit and hold my hand? I don't need you to fix anything. I just need some support. I just need to be with you. I can't be alone right now." Whatever it is that we need to say. Because really those tears, that triggers the fight or flight in people and
mm,
gets people stressed and nervous and they want to run and leave. And really it's got to be a welcoming situation so that we will all feel comfortable. A lot of people like you and me, we're very empathetic, compassionate. We see somebody crying, we feel comfortable in that situation, but not everybody does. And a lot of
mm,
times it stems from being told when they were younger that crying was bad. "Stop crying, you're not strong, you're no need to cry," or "Boys don't cry," or "Girls don't cry," because everybody's been told at some point, but it's
mm,
always based on somebody's inability to be comfortable with the tears. So we have to be comfortable with this extra emotion, with whatever it is that we're feeling that we need to process, and really realize that these tears are our body's way of coming back into balance. We Our body physiologically needs a way to balance itself. And so if you look at whether it's tears from pain, sadness, childbirth,
mm,
you can also look at tears from anger, because you're going to get situations where you could get so angry that you start to tear up. And there was a researcher who found that when tears really blurred your vision, you were less likely to get angry and be able to really react on that anger.
Mm,
Where if we can get somebody who's angry to let that emotion out, the anger will de-escalate versus being, all bundled up inside.
mm,
And so we want to make sure that we're addressing that as well. And it's a comfort again with knowing that people have to get themselves back into balance some way.
mm,
And if their body can make tears and they feel those emotions, eventually a good cry, as a lot of us will say, oh, I just needed a good cry, right? I'm going to put on a romantic movie and I'm just going to have a good cry. And we
mm,
find that we feel better, and we feel better because of the release of our endorphins, right? That come through and help us with the pain, with the emotions, to help us feel better. And we're going to trigger those through those tears. So it's kind of a cycle that we want to make sure we don't interrupt.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, why do we need to cry? Why it's a good thing to cry? Because it's amazing how this whole ecosystem in which we live, like
Mhm.
our body, our mind, our heart, functions together so perfectly well. So if you feel overwhelmed or sad, there's suddenly those, tears releasing all the
Right.
tension from our body. It's so amazing. It's like the most perfect creation of all
Mhm.
times, right? How it's amazing how it functions to our benefit, not against us, but just to our benefit. So we could heal from inside
Yeah.
and feel better.
Hmm. And the tears can elicit help from other people. Again, that
Mm,
connection. We don't need to be alone. Some people are happy to cry alone, feel better to do it, but there's really no need to be embarrassed or
mm,
ashamed. And we know for sure that those hormones are in the tears. They've looked at them under a microscope, and there are stress hormones inside the tears. So we know that that whole system, there's plenty of evidence to show that it is a good
mm.
thing.
What
Hmm.
if it's difficult to cry? What if I'm really hurting inside, but when I just cannot find tears, they wouldn't come? Again, maybe because I was told not to cry, and then I somehow suppress it. So, what if I really want to cry and then tears wouldn't come? How can I facilitate them?
I know that I think is probably a good question for just the universe to find out, because researchers, from what I've been able to say, can't have a set conclusion. But there are some reasons that they're like theorizing. One is that you have a traumatic event and you just shut down that, whatever that trauma was.
Mm,
The the tears just are not going to flow. Your mind has just
mm,
said no, it's not going to happen. Antidepressants can sometimes keep you from crying. Depression, and there's also an autoimmune disorder and a congenital defect that can affect, like, if your tear ducts will work.
mm,
Um, and so if you're not able to really produce tears, but maybe you have strong emotion and you don't feel anything, it could be a reason to even talk to the physician and say,
mm,
I my tear system isn't working, and
mm,
see if that can help. And some people, they they just don't feel, they just don't cry.
mm,
I see my mom as a very, very passionate person and very, emotional driven. I don't really see tears. I can't say 100%. And I think that's why researchers can't come to a conclusion on
mm,
what that really is. And how can you get yourself to cry? I think if you were really looking to cry, it would be a good book, a good movie, something that's really a tearjerker. But I wouldn't want anybody in a situation where they would feel like I have to learn to cry or I have to cry.
mm,
Because then there's that whole feeling of what's wrong with me, and why can't I cry? Why am I not crying? So people would, I think, be best to just look at tears as, if it's something that I do a lot, I do a lot. And if I don't do a lot, I'm okay too,
mm,
because I still have a lot of emotion. I still am feeling who I am and I'm feeling life. But perhaps if they are having other signs of like depression or something, that might go along with it. So there might be the reason to talk to a physician if you think that you're just not feeling right about your emotions and how they are displayed, because we also do go to the doctor a lot too when we cry a lot, because people
Mm,
think, oh, she's depressed, she's crying a lot.
mm, mm,
Well, is that really the case, or do you just have a lot of emotion? We get around that time of the month, right, where you feel yourself with maybe more anxiety and more emotion, and you're more teary and you don't understand why. Again, those are hormone fluctuations, and so sometimes that hormone can increase or decrease those tears.
How do we know the difference? I mean, what should be an alarm? Like, is it just normal crying? Is it just hormonal crying? Or is it really going into that, I don't know, depression cycle or very dark thoughts? And then, what should be my sign that I would know that, okay, that's okay because that's just crying, or maybe not. Maybe that's became really like a pattern about something going deep inside me, which is like more than just tears.
Yeah, I think that being moms and being friends and being around other people, we know what's normal for who we're with. I think that looking at myself back in the days when was having babies, and there's so much going on, and whether it was the stress and school papers and this and that, I could probably cry daily. Did that necessarily mean I was depressed, or did it just mean I had a lot going on?
Mm,
If I were to cry that amount now without those items in my life, that might be a sign. So I think that when you look at your crying, if it's interfering with your daily activities, if it's interfering with your relationships, if it's interfering with you enjoying your life, I think
mhm,
that would be a sign for a person to seek out help. I also think that as the support groups and as we get together as women, that we learn each other and we see each other. And that's when you may say, hey, you might need a postpartum support group, or if you talk to other women to kind of get a feel for whether or not you're comfortable with the amount of crying that you're doing, because I think inside we know whether that crying is really interfering with life.
mhm,
And the next step is, are we willing to admit it and get help? A
mm.
lot of people will suffer in silence and not speak up and not reach out. And so, again, having our supportive team, people around us, having that little voice inside that says, this isn't right, please go get help. We just need to promote it, because there is there's good tears that bring us into balance, but the tears that are continuing, that maybe are just not making us feel good anymore,
Mm,
if that helps. I don't have a set book, and I'm
mm.
not a psychologist to be able to share, okay, these are the exact signs that you need to go in, because every mom is different. And
Yeah,
some
but
moms don't even show it and they need help.
I love what you said about people living with us or just being close to us, because that's true. We,
Mhm.
as people who are close to that person, we can feel and see the difference. We
Yeah.
could, maybe that person itself couldn't see the difference, but we can see the difference. I could see that my friend or my sister or my mom,
Yeah.
they change somehow and now they are all tears all the time, and that could be a sign maybe I should look closer, maybe I should offer help, maybe I should at least start a conversation, maybe I should do something. So I really love that. And back in those times when you were a young mom, what was the most difficult for you as a mom? What was your
The
most
worry,
triggering trigger?
the triggering trigger. That's a good one. Um, the worry. I
Mm,
worried constantly, and I'm sure that's no different, because we bring these precious lives into the world, and now we're worried about a car accident, we worry about choking, we worry about sudden infant death syndrome. We're bombarded with
Mm,
worry. And
mm,
that's a heavy, heavy load to be putting on our shoulders. So when I think of what was the hardest, the
mm,
worry, um, the next hardest was, am I doing and saying the right things?
mm,
I didn't know. And back 30 years ago, now I'm dating myself. But that's okay. I'm proud of my parenting years. Um, I think that there's so much more information now, and we're hearing so many different messages now
mm,
that I'm really feeling almost badly for the parent that I was back then, because oh my gosh, I did that. I can't believe that it.
mm,
And it's just an evolution, I think, for all of us.
mm,
And I'm sure that moms today are doing the same thing. Am I saying the right things?
mm,
They're worried about the same things. I don't think that's ever going to change regardless of the year. It's just the circumstances we are living in that are going to be different. But definitely the worry was the hardest because it would consume my thoughts,
mm,
and that worry would make a thought that would make me cry. The
mhm,
thought of them getting hurt,
mm,
just the mere thought of them getting hurt would make me cry.
mm,
And so there's a lot of that stress from that situation. And I think that the worry and the stress when they were little took me away from really having fun and enjoying the happiness. So if I were to, share any type of learnings, or, the great advice, it definitely would be that not to use your worry and stress to take up that time in your mind, because what really is more important is creating the happiness, being positive and being present with the
mm,
kids. Because I think I forgot a lot because I was too busy. My mind was so congested with everything, being busy worrying, that I look back and I'm like, I can't remember that. And the kids will tell me all about it, but I can't remember it because I was probably so worried about something at the time and I wasn't present. So,
mm. I
that's,
can I can relate to that. I can really relate to
yeah.
that. And I know that now you have grandchildren, right?
Yes.
Is your relationship to them the same? Do you worry the same for grandchildren, or is it different?
It's definitely different. Being a grandmother, you have to step back and remember whose children they are, right?
Mm,
And I the worry is still there. Like when I think of, I still want them safe, make sure that nothing bad happens to them. But when you're not there all the time, you don't see it. So
mm,
the worry and the stress level goes down a little bit. But
mm,
in the back of your mind, of course, you're always worried and you're always stressed. But it's very rewarding because you've then taken all the tools, everything that you knew, and you pass it on. Um, and it's difficult because they're now parenting based on stuff that I did, right? And just the parent that I was. And I didn't come to the table with the tools, all the tools to do it perfectly either. And so I think that as parents, we're kind of transferring just what we know because
mm,
that's what we know. And that's where we're at. And so every generation, I think, has to continually learn from, okay, well, this is what my mom did. Now I'm going to be different. This is how I'm going to do it and then go forward.
mm,
And so as a grandma, it's difficult because it's different, right? It's a
mm,
different time, it's a different way of parenting. But there's a lot of joy in being able to just look forward at the future and again learn that I need to be present. And maybe that's why grandparents are so um, excited to be grandparents, because you can love them and be present for them and do the things that you didn't do when they were younger, because now we know better, right? And then you give them to their parents and their parents take them home and then we get a whole night's sleep, right? I think that's, the joy of parenting in that. And I've heard people say that parent being a grandparent is your reward for letting your children grow through teenage years, because those are the hardest. So it's definitely different. It's
I read
definitely different.
somewhere that you are a way better grandparent than you were a parent, because when you are a parent, as you said, you have all this worry and all this, daily struggle. And as a grandparent, you can relax more because you have your nights for yourself.
Yeah.
You have your days for yourself too. And you have your grandchildren occasionally, for vacation or holidays. And then you relax more, you enjoy more, and you also have more experience, more wisdom. You have more to share. So it's, as grandparents, we are way more relaxed than we were as parents. And usually, if I don't remember the exact saying, but the idea was that you are a better parent being grandparent when you was parent to your own children. That's how it works. That's really normal, and
Mhm.
that's how that's how I see my parents behave when I compare the way they were related to us and the kind of relationship we had, and I see the relation to the grandchildren's, my children. It's different. It's softer. It's wiser. It's more relaxed. It's so different, and they are the same persons, right? They still the same people, and yet they are somehow different in
Yeah,
relationship
they're
with
very
children.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Grandparenting can be a joy, and hopefully,
Mm,
families work together to keep those relationships solid, and to promote, the grandparents, and promote
mm,
the parents, and that they support together as a team, because grandparents really, when you think about it, is like a relationship where you have two parents, right, for the children, and you want to really encourage your grandparents to be on board in the same way, supporting, like if you don't want to give them sugar, make sure the grandparents are on board. So we're working as a team, and that can be hard for grandparents to learn.
mm,
I raised you, I give you sugar, you're fine. Well, no, now, I don't want my child to have sugar for these reasons, and we need the grandparent support. And so it's still a great relationship, but we all need to look at, we're raising the child and what's in the best interest of the child, and
mm.
respecting the parents at the same time, which would then, the parents respecting all the wisdom of the grandparents. It's great that, you have that going on for you, for
Mm.
sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the conversation. And just please tell where we can find more of you and listen and read maybe what about your work.
I have a webpage, kathymendias.com. I have a couple articles there. And I'm actually just ramping up. I have been teaching for 30 years, and more than 30 years. And I'm at a part of my life where I'm on my own journey now to transition from working and grandparenting, and now kind of what's going on in the next phase of my life. So on that webpage, you can keep up with me and see where I go. It'll be
Thank you.
exciting journey.
I'm gonna put that into the notes. Thank you, and have a
Thank
lovely day
you.
because it's still morning where you are and it's sunset where I am.
Oh, then you'll have a wonderful evening. I appreciate it. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.